Welcome to the National Black Leadership and Empowerment Project series, Ask an Elder.
Morning, this is part of our Ask an Elder series for the Noble Project. I'm Ron Smith, and I'm actually interviewing my mother, Cassandra Lockett. And today's topic, we're going to cover her growing up in the segregated South. My mom's originally she was born in Clearwater, Florida, and lived there. She also went to a segregated school, and she was one of the first students in her county to integrate the school system as well. And then we'll also talk about her discussions that we've had about the importance of voting and why we should vote and do that. So first, I'll let you introduce yourself, Mom.
I'm Cassandra Lockett, and I am Ronald Smith's mother. I did grow up in Clearwater, Florida. I was born in Clearwater, Florida in April 1949. My grandparents had known slavery. My grandmother that helped raise me, Geneva, she was more privileged than her mother and her grandmother before, but I was privileged to have been around them a little bit before their deaths. I attended my first school in 1956, Curtis Elementary School. It was totally segregated. It was a comfortable experience because we all looked alike. And the experiences that our parents had started instilling in us as even before we began school, we were always chaperoned away from downtown. We were never to question about going to the beach, and Clearwater, Florida has the most beautiful beach in the world. But during that time, we weren't even allowed to even think about going to a beach. We went to what we call the causeway, which a lot of our people died from the extreme currents in that, but that was our only swimming place. In school, our parents really, growing up in the South, and I actually learned later as I grew up that the most important focus for us at that time was that we wanted equality in our schools. It wasn't so much that we wanted to be integrated with others, but that we could accept segregation as long as it was equal, that our children were getting the same kind of books and opportunities to grow in their own communities, because our communities at that time were fastened on thriving at our level, being more like other nationalities have been, where they prosper by understanding that they interact with themselves, and they buy, they sell, and those things were more important. As time progressed, integration was coming at a fast rate. Just especially, I was touched by Woolworth's integration because of the fact that many times I had been to Woolworth, and many times my grandmother would always say, "No, eat before you go," because you weren't allowed to ask for ice cream or anything because you weren't allowed to sit down. The signs were clear. We saw many signs during that time of we knew we weren't supposed to drink at the water fountain because the water fountain was white only. There were many buildings that restrooms were white only. So those things you learn early as a child. When I transferred, when I was in school and going from elementary school into Pinellas County. Pinellas County was my high school, junior high and high school, which was together. We had sectionalism in itself because of the book deficit, because of the teachers. You were singled out from the beginning after you left elementary school as to how you would thrive in the junior high and then how you would thrive in senior high. Sectionalism made that the children who had the higher IQ got to the better books and got the better teachers, but we were segregated from ourselves, not only from the outside, but we were segregated inside so that you could progress the ones that would make it in the world to make changes. Then I was fortunate. I was one of honest students, and I was chosen to go to the first integrated high school, and that was Dunedin High School. We were supposed to ride a bus, a regular school bus, and we lived out of Clearwater, so we would have to be bused to Dunedin. And thinking that this was going to be changes that we were expecting, but when the integration started in the 60s, we were only 20 riding a bus every day to school because the white kids refused. Their parents wouldn't allow them to ride with us. We came up against the same things that many kids face. We were not allowed, and we were going to a school that housed over 1,000 children. We were not allowed to be in a classroom with more than one of us. And
Really?
that was really hard because you weren't accepted by the white and you were alone. And so there were many meetings and many counseling sessions to try to help us to understand how to cope because this was so important as the first step. It did do damage to us because we have no camaraderie with, I don't have no camaraderie with my former classmates and our former teachers. When it comes up that it's a time for alumni to gather, I don't feel like an alumni. I graduated with honors, but I felt lost of that time that I spent. Even though I knew it had a good purpose, it still didn't, it's later affected my life because even as you look back at your times at high school and proms and things, these were things that did not happen for us being the first to try to integrate a system. Our community was built on church. And just like even things, even when in high school, simple things like Girl Scouts, softball, athletic part, we were excluded. We still continued to do Girl Scouts in our segregated areas. Like we would go to William Elementary School for those kind of things and anything that would help us to continue to use extracurricular activities. But as far as the school itself, our main goal was to show that we were capable of learning because it had been the myth that Black people didn't have the same IQ as white people. And what they did as far as our Black counterpart, they took the best of what they had to put into their schools. And we thrived very well. It wasn't that we didn't thrive. We thrived with honors, even though there were many difficulties of how they treated you, how they slammed doors in your face, how teachers would tell you that you were not capable of getting the grade that you deserve, having your parents have to go back and it was a dangerous time because your parents had to fight for what you were trying to achieve. I had many teachers that thought that, oh, I can just decide today that because the comma is in the wrong space that she failed this test. And that wasn't so. And so your parents had to be on board as well. And the parents in the South at that time, because of church and community, they held strong. And we did survive those 4 years that I spent in Dunedin. I went on from Dunedin, and like I said, our churches were very important during that time. We politics was always discussed in the church, in the pulpit. It came down from the pulpit. It came down to your deacons and your trustees because they knew the importance of surviving. And like I said before, it wasn't that we wanted to survive so much as an integrated community. Since it was coming, we could accept it. But our most important problem that we have faced was the fact of lack of funds to fund our schools, our communities, and still we see that today. We sometimes have migrated into areas where there's a lot of population of Black people, but the main thing is the funding is held up so that we don't thrive. And that's why it's so important for us to choose leaders that see the problems, because the problem is economics, and you're holding a race of people down. You're not letting them thrive. It's not that they want to thrive to be with you. You know, we choose who is in our company. We choose the people we want to be with. And that's what people fail to understand. You can live in any community as long as you put money into these communities, you're going to get something back from these communities. But as long as you try to hold communities into an area where you want them below the level, you want to continue this, I'm better than you, we're never going to get anywhere. Our people, in fact, have got to know, and like I was still, even as a Northerner, I came to the North, and it was an eye opener. It's more segregated than the South. Because one thing you do know, in the South, you know what to expect. In the North, it's a hidden dynamics that holds you down. And it was hard to grasp at first that this is supposed to be a place of more freedom of expression and a freedom of understanding how to thrive. And this area was a harder place to thrive because everything was in place and geared against you. And it was so important when I had my family that I educated them the best I could, and utilizing their schools, because they had made it a practice in the North to elevate their schools according to private rather than put money into the general population of the city. So parents had to look at how are we going to educate our children and keep them well and out of the street. And that was that we had to work harder to put them in the same places that they could thrive better. Going back to my time as growing up, it was so important that we learned certain things, the preamble of the Constitution, what our rights were, the Bill of Rights, and things like this. And when my kids were growing up, it took them a little bit to understand that it's not that I'm prejudiced. I'm trying to make you understand and continue your heritage, because when you get north, you get a different feel, they don't want you to discuss your heritage. They don't want to teach your heritage in their schools. And that gets our children lackadaisical, that they don't know the importance of what they have, the vote. If we vote, we have a say. If we don't vote, then there's no say. And that's what we understood in the beginning as we progressed from the South. When we were given the right to vote, we thought that was our ticket out. We made it important with our Emancipation Proclamation, constantly recited, reaching out to our schools that were dominantly Black. We did those things because that meant the most to us, because that was progress. And the only way I believe that our country is going to progress is if we get our Black and people of color. Now we're not just Black, we're all people of color, as they say. To understand the biggest thing we have is our right to vote. If we let our voices be heard, just like when we protested, those were dangerous times. But look at where we've come. But we haven't come far enough. We still have so far to go because we begin to just weather off and think it's okay. It's not okay. It's not okay when we hear some of our people say, well, my vote doesn't count. Yes, your vote does count. Your vote doesn't count if you stay home, but your vote counts if you vote. That's why it's so important to us as people that we must vote, and we can instill that enough is in everyday talking. I find myself now, because of the times that we're in, and these are turbulent times, I find that no matter who I'm talking to, I'm talking about, oh, are you registered to vote? Or somehow it comes up. This is a subject we need to talk about.
Yeah, definitely. Tell me, question, you mentioned when you were coming up north and voting and noticing the difference. I guess you're saying that there's like an apathy for people not wanting to vote. Do you feel that it's getting better reaching young people about talking to voting, or do you think it's going away? Like, what do you kind of see?
I see that more young people are getting involved. It takes more young people, but it also takes the older people to encourage them that it's important. It's like I ran against people that are like 30, 40. I ran into a lady the other day. She said she never voted. I said, oh my gosh, I gotta get you a card because time is running out. You never voted. I mean, that was just like, wow. Where are you living? That you think it's not important. And the things that are going on around us would make you more aware that you should vote. Our young people are more in tune, the ones that are going to college, the ones that are really studying. They are a grassroots group that seems to have taken off, and they seem to be able to reach their peers. And I think that's a good thing. And I think that started way back when Obama came into office, that our younger people were tapped to know that their voices do count. And I think the encouragement of the next generations have made it so that they realize the right to vote is just not something you just got when you turned a certain age. This is something you look forward to, that you look forward to. I can voice my opinion. And I think that the message has gotten out clear to our young adults that are especially the more educated adults.
Gotcha. Speaking of, since you mentioned former President Obama and now Kamala Harris, how do you feel about them now running for one, getting the highest office, and then one running for the second highest, since you come from a way where it was segregated and couldn't vote and really had those challenges? Like, how do you feel about that?
I feel like Kamala Harris, I think his choice for Kamala Harris was a bold choice for Vice President Biden. I feel that Vice President Biden, as far as a leader, I believe he has capabilities of leading this country out of the chaos and confusion, because we need a calm voice. Our country has not gotten to the point that it is so liberal. It is still so conservative and so still biased, that I believe with him, there's kind of a balance. Kamala Harris brings in a fresh look, especially for women voters, and as far as people of color, because she has experienced the same things growing up that I have, and she knows that there has to be some changes. I believe that she's a good choice because she's outspoken, and I don't believe that she's too far to the right or too far to the left. When you get into politics, you have to get to a medium, and I believe that between those two, there is a medium. I was really surprised at his pick, in a sense, because of the fact that Kamala, a lot of times when people put you on point or embarrass you in any light, you hold that against them. But what I saw with Biden was that I'm above that. I can move past that. This is what's good for the country at this time. We have to give the country something to look forward to and put us in a direction of moving in a positive direction, drawing us together, not constantly isolating us.
Okay. And then I guess I think that was very good. Oh, last question.
Okay.
Because you hear a lot about Black Lives Matter, riots, they try to say the voice, but you grew up too during turbulent times of the 60s where there was a lot of race riots. You witnessed the assassination of Kennedy and then King. Anything that you can shed light on with that? Like, do you feel like, what was the message back then? Did it seem like other people galvanized it, or did they try to use those instances to kind of use it against civil rights and the movements for civil rights? Like,
of course they did, because Martin Luther King was preaching peace. Okay, and then on the opposite side, Malcolm was preaching, he wasn't preaching violence. He was preaching the fact, if you hurt me, I have a right to hurt you. But at the same time, we had a peaceful march that said, turn the other cheek, you know. It wasn't like, and then finally the two messages kind of meshed in. Malcolm wasn't saying go out there and just shoot people. And Martin Luther King was saying we have to be at peace. So we were kind of like at a standstill. But then the basis of what came down from slavery was that we depended so much on our God that we were like the Israelites, want God to come and save us from this catastrophe. So the message of peace with Martin Luther King rang out more so than what Malcolm was saying. But what Malcolm was saying didn't destroy the country. It began to mesh into the country, that his ideologies kind of changed and smoothed out, because he wasn't a man that was promoting war. He was just being a man saying that we've had enough. But then when he got with Martin, then it became a smoother way. But what they've done with Black Lives Matter has been totally different. That you have had the left, the supremacists, come in to make it seem like it's the Black Lives Matter movement. All lives do matter. We're not saying that. But the main thing is that our Black lives have been suppressed so much. We've had to teach our sons from beginning, don't do this, don't do that. I witnessed the body of a man that in Clearwater who was accused of a crime that he didn't commit. And he was executed. And later on, this woman comes up and says, no, it wasn't true. But we saw his body all crumbled and burned up. That was on display for us. We have been through this. Oh, yes, Black lives do matter. We're just tired of hearing about how our people are treated through a systematic system, which allows you to destroy them. You destroy our boys from the beginning. If our boys get in trouble, you take them to court and you railroad them through. If you can take another child that's not a color, and he can get restitution, he can get help, but you don't offer these to ours. What you do is put them in a system and they're destroyed from then on. One mistake, but you don't allow this for the other part. That's what we're saying. We're not saying that we want to burn down the world. We want you to stop in your system. Your system is the problem. Your system of hiring people who are not capable of interacting with people. We want you to vet them better. We want you to check their psychological aspects of these people that you're because most people who got into the police force have some mental problem. That has been proven. They get into that so that they can suppress other people. And that's what the system was designed for. Slavery designed this system to keep us down. And unless we vote and unless we speak up, this system will continue. We will continue to be afraid when our sons go out in the street. We'll continue, like now, it was a simple thing just the other day that happened to me. I'm in a car and I'm with the man and we're driving to lunch, and realized that when you pulled over, don't pull out, his window was not working. Panic set in because you can't roll the window down. The window is rolled up. The policeman's on the side. You gotta watch everything you do because he may think you're going for anything. So you're trying to talk and you're trying to talk on this side and say, oh, the window doesn't work, because you don't want him to make a fast move because he's Black. That's the problem. But it wouldn't have been a problem for another person, but it's a problem to us. It's a problem to our sons. And it shouldn't be this way.
Right. Well, we really appreciate your time doing this and for our Ask an Elder series, and they get posted every Sunday. And
Okay.
so you'll be on one of our Sunday topics. But really do appreciate your time, Mom. It was definitely
I hope
great.
I did well, son.
I think so. I think you did.
This message has been brought to you by the National Black Leadership and Empowerment Project.